Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. Couple quick things I'll talk more about as the show goes along, as we're having our next station event. Technically, it's our sister station, KLIF, but Brian Kilmeade's coming to town, and that's happening tomorrow at 6 o'clock, Community Beer. Stick around. We'll talk a little bit more about that as the show goes along, but top story of the day nationally is centering around Doge, and a lot of it is now turning to the reaction to Doge. And there's been something interesting. Elon Musk went from the darling of the electric vehicle crowd, the global warming crowd, the environmentalism crowd, to now you have people who are selling their Teslas back and bragging about it, or Tesla's getting vandalized. And it's just interesting to see how much a brand can turn around in just such a short period of time because they delve into something as polarizing as politics. My first guest knows a little something about brand building. Craig Crossley on the James Show. Welcome to the James Show. Is there any way that Elon Musk can ever recover and be non-polarizing again, or is this just what he has to live with for the rest of his life?
Well, it's interesting that we talk about it, and regardless of your political affiliation, right? I'm not even here to talk about that. It's just interesting to see what happens with a brand that truly takes their identity from a personal image, right? I mean, you've seen it in different products across the industry, right? But anytime that you have a brand that says it lives and dies on the image of the owner or some other figure, then you're going to be susceptible to these sorts of incidents. I mean, look at what happened with Kanye West years ago, right? I mean, he said what he said, and it completely affected what Adidas did with his brand. Adidas ended up taking a huge loss on his shoe because the image of that shoe brand was so closely tied to that specific individual. You have other cases, that are similar to that. I mean, even if you go down to something with Bud Light. Bud Light,
Craig, I was going to bring that up because I think they've done a pretty good job recovering their brand after, they dipped in with Dylan Mulvaney and caught a bunch of criticism. They've since just backed up a dump truck full of money to Shane Gillis, and I've seen them all over the UFC. And I think they even got Kid Rock down for an endorsement, or there's been a string of these people that they've obviously tried to make an attempt to recover them.
Well, right. I mean, so, what we look at from a crisis management perspective is you've immediately got to change the narrative and go back to what put you on top. So Tesla has always been known as the innovative brand and leading the industry when it came to EV batteries and just being the cool EV out there. And now all of a sudden the conversation is just about Elon Musk and what you think about his political views. So to your point with Bud Light, it was a miscalculation. Think about it. A larger percentage or a larger majority of your electric vehicle drivers, Tesla drivers, are Democrats. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, I don't care. But if you look at the numbers and start to look at who your audience is, and you're not playing to your audience, you're going to suffer a little bit, right? So what Bud Light did was underestimate the fact that a large percentage of their audience were people that didn't necessarily align with the views that they were taking on. So for them, it was getting back to and repurposing or rebranding, putting themselves out there with that same message that says, we're just a good beer. We're a low-calorie beer. Enjoy our beer. Let's forget about all the other things. And that's where Tesla has got to get back to what put them on top and try to change the narrative from this being a political issue.
Well, I guess the benchmark example that everyone is familiar with in scorching your audience is the new Coke debacle from the mid 80s. Now they could just switch back to the old formula of classic Coke, say, I'm sorry, we didn't mean to tinker with your precious formula. We'll never do it again. But I don't see any way for Elon Musk to go back to the old formula like this. I don't see how this stink ever goes away.
Well, again, we've seen it, right? I mean, for that matter, think about what happened with Tylenol back in the day, right? When 7 people passed away from taking their product because somebody tampered with it and put cyanide in it. Well, they immediately came out and talked about the things that they were doing different, making it tamper proof and reaffirming to society that they were the leading brand when it came to pain relief. I don't think that Tesla is facing such a battle that they can't recover from it. But again, they've got to change the narrative to impress upon people that they are the leaders in the market when it comes to EVs, and they have better technology and they're innovative. All of those things, as I said, that put them on top. They've just got to get that messaging out there in full force. I agree with you. You know, if you look at Coke, I mean, Coca-Cola is one of the biggest and best marketing machines in the world, right? I mean, they can make you feel a certain way about the sound of opening a can of Coke, for that matter, right? It's just the marketing and promotions that goes behind driving what the message is, but you can't be tone deaf.
All right, Craig Crossley, thank you very much for your time on the James Show. Where do we find you online?
Check us out at thecrosleyGroup.com. We are a solid brand strategy and crisis management firm, and we look forward to any opportunities out there.
Thank you very much. Craig Crossley. CrosleyGroup.com. Coming up next, there was a press conference right before lunch today in downtown here in Dallas where some of the city leaders got together and they've all pledged fealty and support to keep the downtown Neiman Marcus flagship store open. And they say things like, you know, everyone agrees that we need this. This is important. This is vital to the vibrancy of downtown. Is it? I don't think so. I'll play some audio from the press conference and then let you decide coming up next. Do we really need to spend taxpayer money to ensure there's the downtown Neiman Marcus flagship? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, sports fans. James Parker here for the Prize Picks app. Are you a soccer fan? Or look, you can call it football. I don't care what you call it. But you can get some action on the games you're already watching there with the Prize Picks app. Look, are you watching Southampton tonight? They're playing some team I can't pronounce, but if their goalie gets more than 2.5 saves, you could win. Or you could choose left. Is he going to get less than 2.5 saves? That seems kind of like a low number. So good luck there, Flip Jurgensen. I think I said that correctly too. But go check it out. Whatever sport you're into, Prize Picks can probably back you up. It's just America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. That's all. Just 10 million daily players. That's all. And you can play with some money with our promo code. Download the Prize Picks app. If it's your first time, use promo code WBAP, and with your first $5 play, you get $50. And you can spend it on soccer. You can spend it on professional basketball, college basketball. You know, they got the big tournament coming up next month. Is this pickleball, MMA, boxing, cricket? You got to see it. If you're a sports fan, already watching sports, just add a little bit more spice to it. Use promo code WBAP, get $50 with your first $5 play. Prize Picks, run your game. Flurgan Jurgensen. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Should we save the Neiman Marcus flagship downtown? Now, I don't know the details on what's going on with their lease, but apparently in that big multi-story flagship that they have downtown, there's more than one lessor. Isn't that what it's called? There's like a leasee and a lessor. And that's not really that unusual, but I don't know. Again, I don't know the details, but something's got complicated and they're not coming into an agreement. And so it's been announced that it was going to shut down. Well, within a few days, we have Dallas city leaders who are falling all over themselves to spend your tax money to make sure the luxury department store keeps their old, it's not even their original location. Their original location burned, and this was like the replacement for that. But it's a storefront that's been there for 17, 18 years. It's been there since 1907. And so just because it's been there for over 100 years, we have to pay taxpayer money to save it? I don't get that. Well, don't listen to me. Let's listen to a few people. Jennifer Scripps, Downtown Dallas Corporation, or what's it called? Inc., whatever it is. Here's her rationale. Now, what I'm looking for as a taxpayer is, okay, if we give them money or if we help them, how do they pay us back? Is there a mechanism by which they pay us back? Is there other examples that you can look at where you told us last year or the year before that, hey, yeah, remember when we told you we were going to make this investment with your money? We did it, and here's how it turned out well. Like they had bought an old building that they were going to turn into like some mixed use / homeless shelter / something or other office space, and they're about to sell that building back. So that's what I'm looking for. Let's see if that's what we get. Jennifer Scripps.
Downtown Dallas Inc. And we are gathered here as a coalition. It's hard to imagine for any of us, and I know the same is true for you, that this place could be in danger of going away.
Why? How is that hard to imagine? See, I feel like I'm missing part of the story because she says these things like I'm just supposed to know. It's hard to imagine it going away. Not hard for me. I never go there. In fact, I've never been there. I remember visiting Dallas when I was in high school and like going past it and being like, oh, that's the original Neiman Marcus. Cool. But never actually going in there. I remember when I was hanging out downtown working quite a bit in my 20s, I would walk past it and I remember it'd be all decorated for Christmas. But you know what? I don't think I've ever actually set foot in there. And then I left town for a little over a decade and came back. And even since I've been back for the last 3-something years, I don't think I've ever set foot inside the downtown Neiman Marcus store. So when she says, well, I know it's impossible to imagine. No, actually, it's real easy to imagine. It hasn't been an important part of my life. Now, I've been in other Neimans. Heck, I worked in the Willowbrook Mall for a while. Yeah, I've been to Neimans. If I ever need some $260 jeans, that's the first place I'll go. But no, I can imagine life pretty easily without it. So just the weird premise that these people just think we all agree on, like it falls apart within the first 10 seconds.
And just last week, when we abruptly learned this news, we felt like it seemed premature. Losing Neiman Marcus would be more than just a store shutting down.
Why?
It's the loss of a historic landmark, a pillar of Dallas culture, and a symbol of the vibrancy that makes our city unique.
Can it be a pillar if I work less than a mile from it and I've never been there? And sure, it's historic, but we don't have to save everything historic. You know, there was the historic Waldorf Astoria in downtown Manhattan for years and years. Big, beautiful, ornate building, and they fought like hell to tear it down. And then finally, one day they did tear it down, even though it was ornate, even though it was historic, even though it had been there for like 100 years or something. But do you know what they built in its place? The Empire State Building. Something better, something progress happened. Yes, maybe that's good to remember that for 100-something years, this was the flagship for a store that, you know, founded in Dallas and, you know, has the Dallas cultural impact across the world. But that doesn't mean they need to keep that store forever. Before I get to some more audio here, I already got calls piling up. I want to talk to y'all. 800-288-9227 if you have any hot opinions on whether or not we need to spend your taxpayer money to make sure the Neiman Marcus flagship doesn't move downtown. Kathy in Grandview, you're on WBAP. What do you think?
No, don't spend our tax dollars there. How many people actually shop there? How many people will this benefit? I don't see a whole lot.
Right, and who is it benefiting? It's not benefiting the least among us. These are luxury retailers. This is something that Of all the businesses and enterprises that we should maybe consider using taxpayer dollars to save, is there a worse one than a luxury retailer?
Not in my opinion.
Well, then why do they go out and have these press conferences downtown this morning? Like we all agree, like, can you possibly imagine life without the Neiman Marcus downtown? Yes, I can. And look, I'm not just beating up on Jennifer Scripps here. Let's go to your Dallas city manager, Kimberly Tolbert. What does she think about saving the downtown Neiman Marcus?
And at first it felt like we were starting to plan a funeral
Wait,
without.
I'm at the wrong spot. Here it is.
This beautiful store is more than an iconic shopping destination. It is actually one of my favorite places to sneak away to after a long day at City Hall for just some beautiful retail therapy. And to have the opportunity to walk the store and look at all of the wonderful, amazing offerings that this store provides to our community.
Wow, out of touch, right? What planet are you living on, Kimberly Tolbert, if you're trying to like appeal to the everyday citizen in a metropolitan area of 7 million people? Very few of us get to duck out of work in the middle of the day for some retail therapy where we can just go look at a $106 t-shirt for funsies. No, that's not what we do. I'm lucky. I check my bank account before I stop at Dollar General on the way home, one of the 28 that I pass on the way home. No, we don't go to luxury retailers in the middle of the day during the work day for a little retail therapy. That's something I've never said unironically in my life. But they just say these things like, "Oh, it's a vital part." How is it vital? Downtown Dallas would collapse without the Neiman Marcus. Well, then maybe it deserves to die. But you say it's vital. The people out there, if there's not enough of them going in to support the store, then, the market decided it's not that vital. And the market was right. I know you people don't like the free market, but the market was right. You're wrong. The market was right. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. And then once there's some news cameras show up, then people just kind of come out of the woodwork. Hey, I'm a public official. I didn't even know what's going on, but I saw cameras here, so I thought I'd stop by. Paul Ridley.
And during the Christmas holiday season.
Well, thank you, Cam. I'm honored to be here this morning. I just learned about this press conference a short while ago this morning, but I made a point to be here, and I'd like to do just this, emphasize the comments that have already been made by Jennifer and Kim about the importance of retaining Neiman Marcus to downtown.
Yes, I didn't do any preparation for this. I didn't even know there was a press conference that was going to happen. I saw some cameras. I got to stand in front of here, and since I have nothing prepared, I just want to emphasize the comments. It's just like going up to the podium and saying, yeah, what they said, ditto. All right, Mike in Louisville, hang on, I'll talk to you next. What do you think? Do we really need, is it critical to the downtown Dallas area that we use taxpayer dollars to make sure Neiman Marcus doesn't lose its flagship? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Of all the stores and enterprises, is there a worse one than a luxury department store? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. See, this is why I like to do stories like this. Because I look on TV and every channel you go to says, yeah, well, Neiman Marcus flagship is vital to the vibrancy of downtown. If we lose that, it's a key part of what makes downtown so great. And it's historic. We have to have it. And I think no, but no one else is saying no on TV. And then I look at the newspaper and they love the idea. Let's just throw, how much taxpayer money can we burn at the altar of Neiman Marcus? And it's not that I don't like Neiman Marcus. Hell, they got great clothes. I wish I could afford to shop there more. Or ever. Who am I kidding? I don't think I've ever bought anything from Neiman's. But it's not that I dislike them or I wish ill upon them. But if they make their own business decision, like the amount of money that this store generates versus the garbage we have to go through to maintain this rent or this lease setup, it's not worth it anymore. Well, I think that's Neiman's decision to make, and whether or not the taxpayers get involved is a no-brainer. It should just be no, right? 800-288-9227. But I see that, and then all the newspapers, TV stations, all these nonprofits downtown, press conferences, commentators, probably Dallas Observer, and then I bring it up on the show, and I can't find one person that supports it, right? Hang on, Scott. We'll get to you in just a second. I got a couple good calls here. Mike in Louisville. You're on WBAP. What do you think about saving the downtown Neiman's?
Needless markups is $4 billion in debt. Throwing any public money at them is devoid of any logic or common sense. Put a plaque on the side of the building that says, hey, this is where this company was at. But aside from that, this is an absolute boondoggle waste of money.
Yeah, and in fact, we will ask for private voluntary donations just for the plaque, in my opinion.
That's right.
But
that's right.
So why do we see governments do this? And this isn't a Dallas thing, Fort Worth does dumb things. Even and where I'm from in Tyler, they do dumb things like this. So what's the deal?
I don't. It's they think this is what the public wants. The public doesn't want anything to do with this. This is not representation of the public. This is it's another waste of taxpayer money.
I know. Oh, where will rich housewives get $200 flip-flops? What are they going to do, Mike? It's terrible. Thank you, sir.
I know. Yep.
All right. Marshall in Bedford, you're on WBAP. What do you think about saving the downtown Neiman's?
I can tell you this. I'm 74 years old. I grew up in Dallas, and my grandmother was the head seamstress at the Neiman Marcus store right after World War II until 1970. So basically, it's a relic out of the past. Bus lines people would ride the bus downtown to go shopping there. It's all past. It's a relic. Turn it into condos. Call it the Neiman Marcus condos, and people don't go downtown to shop at Neiman Marcus.
And that's okay. Like, I don't understand this. Like, why do they say we need to have a vibrant downtown Dallas with like city life and restaurants and shops? It's like, no, we have big buildings where people go to work, and then they all like to get in their cars, and even if they have to wait in traffic, they like to have houses with yards and a swimming pool and a hot tub so they can have a little dog and their kids can have a playground. And you can't have both. You can't live downtown and have that standard of living. So we're going to live in a commuter society, which means we're going to lose some old relics of the past. And I like that. That's the great word for it. Relic, Marshall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, relic. That's what it is. It's because that has no ill will, I'm tempted to say it's obsolete, but no, relic sounds better. There's a hint of reverence there. Scott Baradell's with Idea Grove. Do you have any thoughts on Dallas spending taxpayer money to save Neiman's downtown?
Well, can we just trade it for the Hollywood sign or something in LA? Can we kind of get back for the Luca trade and get something for it?
Oh, why do you got to bring up something so painful as the Luca trade? Well, look, even if it does have value as a landmark, I like what they did with that big Pegasus. They took it off the mobile building, and it's now sitting outside the Omni Hotel. Is just sort of what it is. A monument is what it is. I like Marshall's word relic, but anyway, yeah. Scott, I like the way you put that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's time has come and gone, so time to move on.
All right, Scott Baradell, we have some other things going on. A recent survey showed majority of Americans don't trust the media to accurately cover things like Doge and Donald Trump. But that kind of echoes what we're seeing here. Like all of the media is saying the opposite of what every person just called in and said about the downtown Neiman. So I think there's just a big disconnect between media and the average person.
Yeah, it really seems to be the case. What's amazing is, YouGov, which is a very well-respected survey organization, did a survey recently that said 29% have a fair amount or great deal of trust in the media to cover Trump. 44% have a fair amount or great deal of trust in what Trump says about himself. So in other words, the public is much more trusting of Trump and Trump's administration, what comes directly out of their mouths, than of the media covering Trump. And that's kind of scary when we've always counted on the media to kind of hold our leaders in check.
Yeah, well, I think the media totally deserves it. Look how many of the biggest stories they've gotten wrong over the last 5, 6, really our entire lifetime. But boy, they really ramped it up, getting things wrong with the Hunter Biden laptop and then everything wrong about COVID for mass the vaccine. So, I think they've caused this themselves. I don't really feel sorry for the media.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to. I hate to say that as someone who started out my career in journalism, and I'm a big believer in journalistic ethics and at least the goal of objectivity, even though it's difficult. But it really looks like that all got thrown out the window in recent years. It's not just that the media has made mistakes. It just looks like there's an agenda behind these mistakes in many cases.
Yeah, and I've never been one that signed on to the media was ever objective. You go look at what they were reporting in the 60s. They were getting that stuff wrong, not just Gulf of Tonkin, but a lot of other social issues wrong. And then all the way back to Walter Duranty and the lead up to World War II and Stalin's Russia and Hitler getting out of prison. The New York Times has some pretty terrible history of biased reporting going back to their founding.
Yeah, I think it's true. And if you go back, and even the attempt at objective journalism is a relatively recent thing. It used to be that for most of the U.S. history, political parties actually funded and controlled the newspaper. So it was kind of slanted from the start. And then early 20th century, there were attempts to move towards something that could be an objective set of facts that people could get behind. And that seemed to work pretty well until about the 80s, but it's blown all to you-know-what since then.
If you were their consultant, if MSNBC called and they said, Scott Baradell, you run Idea Grove, how do we get our brand back on track?
Well, I think for MSNBC, they're essentially reflecting the challenges the whole Democratic Party has, since they so clearly represent the Democratic Party. And, the Democratic Party has shown itself to be out of touch. My point of view is they kind of need to do what happened when Bill Clinton took over leadership of the Democratic Party and bring him a little back more towards the center, because I just think a lot of people think they're out of touch.
All right, Scott Baradell, where will we find your work outside of WBAP?
Well, my agency is Idea Grove at ideagrove.com.
Thank you very much. Scott Baradell, Idea Grove. Coming up, we'll continue the discussion. Should we use Dallas taxpayer dollars to save the downtown Neiman Marcus flagship? I say no. What say you? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Your response next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. If 3 hours isn't enough, or, you're busy from 2 to 5, you only get to catch bits and pieces of the show when you're in and out of the car, you can catch the whole thing on the podcast. And I don't want to discourage you from listening to the show live, but, if you listen to the podcast, we scrape out most of the commercials, traffic, weather, newscasts, and whatnot. So you could really listen to the James Show in almost half the time if that's the way you do it. Now, it's not going to be new and fresh and spur of the moment and live, but look, that's another good option outside the times of 2 to 5 for you to get some of that James Show action. And plus, if I'm going to be doing all this work, someone needs to listen to it. But the big question today is simple: should we be spending Dallas taxpayer money to save the Neiman Marcus flagship downtown? Almost all the media outlets, the big ones, the legacy media outlets here locally, are in favor of it. Everyone that has called or sent me a message is opposed to it. And I don't know if I'm more surprised at the economics, just the economic ignorance that has people supporting this, or the disconnect between what you see on TV and what the people of Dallas really feel. What do you think? 800-288-9227. This is Cleo in Plano. What do you think about saving the Neimans downtown?
I think they're doing the citizens of Dallas a great disservice. The store is old. No one really goes there anymore. Neiman Marcus's brand itself, especially in this part of the country, is not what it used to be. Back in the 80s, 90s, it was like, oh, go to Neiman Marcus. Now, most people don't even know about it. And I hate to say, Dallas, they've got like a homeless problem down there. The streets are really torn up. There's so much stuff that they should be spending that money on besides that store.
So why is it so popular among the Dallas city leaders and the TV stations and the newspapers? Why does it appear like that's a popular sentiment?
Well, I personally think I guess you could say the newspapers and the media, they're just reparroting what the Dallas City Council is doing. And I think somebody needs to look at it. Maybe they need like a mini Doge to investigate what's going on with that, because why would you want to keep that? What kickback are you getting? Are you expecting to get to keep that?
Right. Does that really help you get reelected? Are your voters going to remember that next time they go to the ballot box? Oh, they saved the Neiman Marcus downtown. Now we can afford groceries. Now, none of that makes sense. So I don't know. I try and think of, Cleo, is there an example of when there was a public works project that was ever opposed by the newspaper or TV stations? They always want to save that theater or remodel a museum or do a new park or green space or a walking trail from the art district to the Fair Park. There's not a public project they don't love.
No, I've never seen one that they don't do. Like in Plano, one of the ones of my favorite is the one for Collin Creek Mall. They've been working on that thing for 6 years now. And as early as last year, they were still working on the underground parking lot. So you would pass by it, and there's nothing going on there. And it's just a big money pit. And they have the same thing going on with Willow Bend Mall right now. A bunch of developers want to buy it up. And if you go to the city council meeting, their developers expect you to dump all of this money into this existing mall so they can make it better and put condos in and all this other stuff. And I'm like, if it's that great, why don't you spend your own money, developers, and not have the city council talk them into high taxes for us? And that's all they're doing to the people of Dallas. It's just an old relic, a boondoggle. I agree with that earlier guy. Turn it into some condos or something. Just leave it alone. No one goes down there. No one cares about it.
Just do it with someone else's money. Are you coming to our Brian Kilmeade event tomorrow?
I'm probably not. I can't.
Well, get off my phone, Cleo.
I know. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I know you would if you could. Thank you very much. It's great. Cleo from Plano. Yeah, we're having the Brian Kilmeade event. That's tomorrow. Community Beer. There's more information at WBAP.com, KLIF.com, CommunityBeer.com. I'll talk about it again later in the show because I think we're going to interview him tomorrow. Isn't he on tomorrow's James Show? It's a good get by Garrett. Round of applause for Garrett. If he doesn't cancel, you're going to get 3 points for that one, but let's not jump the gun here. A couple of responses here from the Facebook feed. They're all negative. First off, Mike says, isn't the owner of Neiman Marcus rich? Why don't they save it themselves? Yeah, well, let's not demonize someone for being rich, but I do feel that there's quite a bit of overlap between this and the billionaires who own the NFL franchises and the NBA franchises who get the taxpayers to build them a new stadium. It's why are we building a billionaire Why are we giving a billionaire hundreds of millions of dollars? Is there one person that deserves $100 million of taxpayer money less than the richest guy in town? Oh my God. And then Dixie says there tends to be a trend toward demonstrating or otherwise organizing to try and prevent businesses from making business decisions. If consumers didn't provide the business revenue to keep a business viable, too bad, so sad. Taxpayer money should not be used for bailouts. That's right. Well, what was the whole stimulus package? What's every stimulus package? Kenny says Neiman markups can move wherever they want. And he has the double entendre markups, Marcus. We got it. Very clever there. Warren Zeider's Relapse Tour is coming to the Pavilion at Toyota Music Factory April 11th. Special guest Tyler Braden. Tickets on sale now, livenation.com, or you can text TOUR to 800-288 for your chance to win a pair of tickets to Warren Zeider's Relapse Tour. Text TOUR to 800-288-9227. Coming up next, President Zelensky is visiting the White House soon. What can we expect from this? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. Well, did you hear President Volodymyr Zelensky is making a trip to the White House? And a lot of people think, well, he's coming to the table. Could this mean that an end to the Ukraine-Russia war might be on said table? David Hamilton from America's Future Series coming back on the James Show. Is that what he's coming in town to negotiate here, an end to the war?
Well, we are negotiating the end of this war, thank God. And you and I have talked about this for a really long time, since almost the beginning of the war, that at some point someone had to talk other than not just shoot, right? So glad to hear that. I mean, basically he's saying, I will resign, and if Ukraine can become part of NATO. But that's been one of the big challenges of this entire thing. This entire thing started because, as I refer to them affectionately, Blinken and Nod encouraged Ukraine to join NATO. That was Anthony Blinken, our Secretary of State. Kamala Harris did the same thing, and so did President Biden. And that was really kind of the start of this thing. A better solution, to my mind, is surprisingly, is that Russia joined NATO, and we stopped having the need for NATO. Our enemy is China, and we have to join forces with the rest of the world against China. Fighting Russia is a mistake.
Wait, I feel like I missed a step here. Russia joining NATO.
Yeah, actually, Putin suggested that a couple of years ago. He said, "Hey, we'll join NATO."
Okay, so my disconnect here is that I was under the impression NATO, the original alliance, was formed as almost an explicitly anti-Russian coalition.
Absolutely. And his point is, we don't have to be enemies. The need for NATO should go away. The battle between Ukraine and Russia is centuries old, et cetera. But this idea that America and continue to fight the Cold War, that is obsolete. Our real enemy is China, and Russia has joined forces with China. Russia isn't really a threat to us, certainly not economically. They have nuclear weapons, and they have a relatively ineffective army. We need to stop, spending all of our time, energy, money, et cetera, and perpetuating this war. If you leap to the end, a better solution is, let's not only stop all of the hostilities between Ukraine and Russia, but between Russia and Europe, and let us join forces against the common enemy, as I refer to them, Pinky and the Brain, the people who wake up every night trying to figure out how to take over the world, and who are doing a very good job of that, and they're called China.
Right, and so then if we ever get Russia in the fold, then we're just looking at the big bad actors in the world as what? China, and then the lesser twins of Iran and North Korea. I mean, that's going to solve a huge chunk of our headaches for the past century.
Yeah, you have the totalitarians, North Korea, the totalitarian communists, whatever you want to call them. And then you have the theocrat totalitarians, the Islamic extremists, the jihadists, and there's a coalition of those. That one will probably never be solved, right? That until people stop believing a certain way, that'll never be solved. But at least we could be we could be unified against the threat of China and its desire to make its culture, its system, its leaders, in charge of the entire world. That's where we need to get to. Ultimately, what had to happen is Zelensky had to get off this Putin must die. There's only one way to end this war notion. We have to figure out, and I've said, how to end this war with some negotiated settlement. Russia will probably end up with some slice of eastern Russia.
The Donbass.
The Donbass and the Donetsk. They probably will. They kept Crimea. If we join forces economically, which makes good sense, this rare earth minerals deal between us all, you tend to not kill people you do business with, right? It's only the Chinese that seem to want to destroy their best customer.
Right. So, not to get too nuanced here, but in that trifecta we mentioned with Iran and China and North Korea, here's how I've seen it. Iran is the worst example of an extreme theocracy. China is the worst example that we have of extreme communism still left on planet Earth. And technically, I have seen North Korea as those two put together. It's a theocratic communist state because their supreme leader is still this dude's grandfather, technically, is still the president. And right now, they're just by the order of inheritance filling the chair here on Earth because this ghostly guy, this demigod. What was the original song? Kim Il Sung? Was that the first one?
Yeah. So all we need to think about with regard to North Korea is that they're completely ineffective in terms of an economy. If you fly over it, it's completely dark at night, right?
Oh, that's so bad.
It is a Bronze Age civilization at this point that happens to have and is trying to have nukes.
Do you really think they have nukes? Because the people who are skeptical of them are pretty convincing at times.
Yeah, and I think if we really had them, if they really had them, et cetera, even somebody as ineffective we've been, like the United States, would have done something about that. They can't have nukes. They can't be allowed to have nukes. So I don't worry about North Korea at all. I worry about China. It's just a vassal of China, North Korea, and so has Russia been. Russia has been a tool to fight a proxy war and to drain us, and a supplier of something they need, which is natural resources, oil, gas, and other things like that, and food, wheat. So we have to align. We have to end this war. It's the right thing to do, politically and strategically. The Central European area is like the third or fourth most important area to us in the world. We care mostly about China, and then secondly, the Middle East because of oil, and then Central Europe, in terms of its importance to us, it's really negligible. What we've cared about is the humanitarian aspect, and you have to love the Ukrainians. You have to love how tough they are, how resilient, et cetera. And you have to love anybody, the underdog who's fighting against someone who's trying to oppress them and take them over. Absolutely. But this war does have to end, and somebody has to be the adults in the room.
All right. Tell them about America's Future Series.
May 8th. Check that out on our website. Come see our National Security and Economic Strategy Summit. We have a large group of military, defense, national security, commercial leaders speaking about national and economic security. It's going to be at a Circle T Ranch. You'll have Ross Perot. You'll have a whole host of other folks there. Check that out, and if anybody wants to participate, they can find my email and give me a ring.
Well, I had to look it up last time you said that. Circle T Ranch in Westlake. Is that what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
All right, there you go. Just making sure I had the right one because I'd never heard of that before. There you go. David Hamilton, America's Future Series. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And he's our guy that keeps an eye on what's going on with foreign policy and whatnot. Do you think that we're gonna get an end to the Ukraine war soon? Coming up next, you're going to get a scorecard of what's been going on at the legislative session in Austin, and it's not good. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. If you want to join the big show, 800-288-9227. If you want to meet the big show, we will be at the Brian Kilmeade event tomorrow for our sister station, KLIF. And keep it here because, you know, when you listen to WBAP, there's a lot of events that are going on that we talk about on this show. And I probably should mention them more often, but if you keep listening, there's going to be, like on Thursday, the Dallas County GOP is having a meet the candidates sort of event, but Alan West is going to be there. That's right. Retired Lieutenant Commander Alan West. He's now the president of the Dallas County GOP. And the other co-host of that event is Sarah Gonzalez. She used to be on Texas Scorecard. Now she's on The Blaze, you know, Glenn Beck's outfit, based here out of Dallas. And then Beau French and our friends over at the Tarrant County GOP are having a similar event on Friday. So we're probably going to have him on. Are we having him on Friday, Beau French? Did I even tell you that that's happening and we need to schedule him? Because this kind of counts as me telling you now. Okay. But okay, Alan West will be on Thursday. Let's try and get Beau French on Friday. But we're just trying to keep you abreast of what's going on here in your backyard. Because that's one thing that the show before us can't do and the show after us can't do because they're not from Dallas. The Bongino show or whatever that's going to be in a couple weeks. And then Mark Levin. He's not going to be able to stop down and tell you about these things, but we will here on the James Show. One of the other things that we have here that can't be done by a national show is keeping an eye on what's going on with your tax money that gets sent to Austin. And one of the watchdogs we have is a local state rep. He's out of the Midlothian area is where his district is. His name is Brian Harrison. And he started putting up a scorecard on his Twitter every day where he did it once, and I told him, you got to do this every day. This is so hilarious. And so now he does do it every day. So today's Brian Harrison, State Rep Brian Harrison report card is Texas House 43 days into session as of this morning. What do we have? Number of bills referred, 0. Number of hearings on bills, 0. Number of bills passed, 0. Number of Beyonce resolutions passed, 1. Number of days Beyonce discussed, 2. Number of long weekends, 6. So that's what's going on. They're not taking it very serious. They're not really putting their nose to the grindstone and trying to get you school choice or school vouchers or any sort of the relaxing of the government mandated prepaid school monopoly. There hasn't been any movement on getting your property taxes lower, so we're keeping an eye on that. But my God, how disappointing can they possibly be? Also on the state level, John Cornyn is already opposing a bill with budget cuts in Congress. And I know that's not something that's happening in Austin, but that's a Texas-specific issue here. How do we get rid of this dude? I mean, I understand when you get stuck with a bad guy to begin with. And by bad guy, I don't mean he's a bad person or he's evil, but he doesn't quite vote as red as his constituents are. And so, look, anybody can vote someone into office and be surprised about how they act once they get into office. But once he already gets elected, once he's already in there and he makes all these terrible voting decisions, how does he get re-elected? And that's the problem. That's the problem is once a guy gets entrenched in there, it's so hard to get them removed. And we know what the answer is. We have to beat him in the primary. Someone has to primary him out. Why is that so hard? It just goes to show one of the shortcomings of not America, not Texas, any democratic system. The shortcoming of any democratic system is it relies on the depth of knowledge of the everyday voter to go out there and make the decision on way too many people. When you look at everyone that you're supposed to be studying and knowing about, do you know all the candidates for your state rep district? Do you even know who your state rep is, what district you're in? What about for your state senator's seat? What about for your House of Representatives district? What about for your, do you know all the other Senate candidates besides John Cornyn? Can you name any of the other Senate candidates besides John Cornyn, Republican or Democrat? I mean, what are you going to say, Beto? So it's almost an impossible task. It's like when we send them to DC, the way they've taken on all these other responsibilities. It's an impossible task. John Cornyn is probably a smart guy, but he's not going to be an expert in all the things he has to vote on. He's not an expert in education, but he votes on the Department of Education budget. He's not an expert in the military, but he votes on military matters. He can't be an expert in health and human services and housing and urban development and veterans affairs and education and labor and commerce. And it's an impossible job. So it becomes incumbent on the few of us who do pay attention, find out when that primary is. Make that a focus and maybe get this dude unseated. But as it sits right now, he doesn't seem to be a fan of codifying so many of the cuts that we think are coming just because Doge pointed them out. It's not time to declare victory just yet. Coming up next, there's been some interesting hay made of the fact that both Elon Musk and Donald Trump have multiple children with multiple ladies, and how that sort of isn't unusual for the billionaire class. But you know who else it's not unusual for? The lower class. And I'm not making fun of lower class. I should just say my first cousins actually would be my counter example to that. But it's sort of a rich man, poor man. Have you ever done this exercise, the rich man, poor man? What are some things that really rich people and really poor people have in common? This is one of them. They have different children with different wives or different ladies. I don't know if they made honest women out of all of them. But we'll continue that and talk about how complex it can be with Jennifer Hargrave, the Dallas divorce attorney, next on The James Show. If you have any to add to the list of rich man, poor man examples, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. My next guest is a regular on the James Show. It's the local Dallas divorce attorney, Jennifer Hargraves, back on the James Show. Welcome back, Jennifer. Before we get into today's topic here, I just want to put you on the spot. You know, we have the event coming up tomorrow with Brian Kilmeade from Fox and Friends at Community Beer. If you're not already occupied from 6 to 8, you know, we'd love to have you out there. I'd love to meet you.
Community beer, great choice.
All right. Well, that's. I think that was a soft no.
That's a definite maybe.
Oh, okay. Well, good. I hope. Let me know if you can come out. I'd love to say hi. Let's bring up something that it kind of gets floated around, and it's not a serious topic, but I think it's more relatable than a lot of people think. What I'm talking about is the comparison between Elon Musk, who has like 11, 12 children or something with different women. And now he just had another one. Like there's a fourth baby mama that just had a baby with him last year. And so look, a lot of complexities going on in there. And someone pointed out, well, that's the same thing Trump did. He has children with 3 different women. And so I was thinking, look, that's not the norm, but that's not completely, disconnected from regular people. If I look at, let me go ahead and be personal here. 2 of my first cousins just run around and like to make babies with random people, it seems like. My grandfather had children with 3 different women. So it's not really that uncommon, even among regular people, to really spread that out. But boy, doesn't that make divorce complicated.
Well, it can make child support calculations very complicated, which is a part of divorce. But as you know, you don't have to be married to be making a lot of babies. So that's why sometimes people avoid getting married because they think it complicates things. But the truth is, having children outside of marriage and owning property outside of marriage are factors that make the disentangling the relationship a lot more complicated.
So explain how it kind of fractionalizes out the child support. How do they calculate that if you have multiple baby mamas?
So the first thing to know is that every state is different, right? So we all have these different formulas. So I can only speak to Texas, but our child support formulas sort of cap out at 5 children. There are 5 children before the court in a proceeding, then the maximum amount, according to the guidelines, is 40% of the net resources. And net resources is capped at $9,200 right now. That changes every couple of years from the legislature. But if you have other children, right, from another mother, then that incremental percentage goes down. So if you have 1 child, it's 20%. 1 child before the court, 20%.
Okay.
But if you have 5 children with somebody else, or it's actually up to 7 children with somebody else, then your child support amount would go down to 13%. So in Elon Musk's case, if anybody there is thinking about having babies with him so that they can get a great meal ticket, it's going to be a challenge. According to the guidelines in Texas, he would be paying $1,200 to write about $1,200 for 1 child under the guidelines. Now, people need to know, of course, there are some exceptions to the rules, and it is possible to ask a court to increase the child support over the guidelines. But in Texas, that's very difficult to get. So it's just a big wake-up call for a lot of people.
So it's 13% per child then if you start to get in the multiple?
No. So in the case of, like, if you have 1 child with Elon Musk,
okay,
and he has more than 7 other children, right?
Which he does. He's up to like 11 now. Okay.
Yeah, right. So your 1 child would be 13%. If you said, hey, I'm going to double that, let's go for 2, your child support would be 17%. If you said, well, what about 3? It would be 21%. So it just goes up very incrementally, right? So, if you have a child with somebody who doesn't have any other children, so if Elon Musk was just making babies with 1 person, that 1 person would get 40% of net resources under the guidelines.
Well, he doesn't seem to be enthusiastic about living with any of them. I hear he sleeps at his factories during production time. He sleeps at the launch site before big rocket tests. He's been sleeping up in D.C. doing this Doge stuff. I mean, is there a situation to where he's more valuable to you divorced rather than married?
I mean, who knows? I can't even begin to contemplate what being married to Elon Musk would be like. So, and what the benefits would be there. When you're not married, there's no community property estate. So it's just child support, right? And you're thinking this is Elon's baby, like it's going to be first class all the way, private schools, big houses, nannies. Texas law does not require that. Now, other states do different things. So, if you're filing suit in New York, which I think she is, that's a whole different system.
Wow, that gives me a lot to think. I guess I'm not going to get pregnant from Elon Musk then. That was kind of my plan. It's not the meal ticket I thought it was.
No.
All right, so if someone is wondering if I think I'm getting a shortchanged here in my child support, can they call someone like you and get it reviewed, or once it's taken care of, it's pretty much set? Yes,
they can. They can come in for a child support review, and we have a member on our team who used to work with the Attorney General's office, who's the one who enforces the child support, and she's great. We have other lawyers, too, and other law firms as well can advise whether a modification is in order. It'll depend on if the court said it or if it was an agreed-upon amount. But, yeah, we do that all the time.
Jennifer Hargrave Family Law, thank you for your expertise in this really awkward subject.
Maybe I'll see you tomorrow. We can talk about it more.
That'd be fantastic. Jennifer Hargrave, everybody. Give her a round of applause. Thank you very much. All right, so let's go back to this list, the rich man, poor man list, because this idea, I didn't participate in it. Garrett's family doesn't match this paradigm. Some of us do the weird normal thing of having a nuclear family and your biological parents stay together and just raise the same lot of kids. But, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, that kind of matches what you see from a lot of multi-millionaires, rich guys, billionaires even, is they tend to spread it around. But that's not something that's isolated to the hyper-rich community. That's also something you see in the poor community. And I'm here to point out that there's a lot of odd connections between the rich man and the poor man. Example, living in a hotel. I don't live in a hotel. You don't live in a hotel. Garrett doesn't live in a hotel. Bruce doesn't live in a hotel. Kimberly James doesn't live in a hotel. But really rich people live in hotels. Donald Trump lives in a hotel. Also, really poor people live in hotels. It's not the same hotel. It's a hotel that you wouldn't want to stay at on vacation, but still, they live in a hotel. What would your addition be to the rich man, poor man list? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's do a little rich man, poor man. I know you're thinking, what's the big deal about this? Wait until you hear the list we've compiled thus far. You know, I first heard this comparison long time ago. There was a show, Loveline. Does anyone remember Loveline? Adam Carolla, Dr. Drew? It was on the radio for years. Then it was on MTV for a little while, and then it was still on the radio. And he made the connection. This is sort of where it started. But over the years, you know, as you do talk radio, and this comes up every once in a while, people keep adding to the list. So then I started compiling my own list, and it's huge. And look, this is all predicated off of the criticism of Elon Musk. It was revealed over the last week that he has another baby mama, Ashley St. Clair. I mean, unless you're perpetually online like me, just terminally online like me, you probably don't know who she is, but she's an influencer of some note. Yes, she's very pretty. So, and look, I'm not trying to get on my moral high horse here, you know, because Elon Musk has kids with like what, 4 different ladies now? Is it 5, 4, 5, something like that? And I only have one. Number one, I just don't have the same amount of options he does. So I don't know if I can get as much credit, you know, for keeping my baby making funnel all through the same lady here. So this isn't a judgment thing. But when people were pointing out online that, oh, really, he doesn't represent MAGA. MAGA is not down with that. You know, they're Christians, and you know, they're supposed to be all about the family, but they still support this guy. Well, look, I don't think having babies with multiple mothers disconnects you. In fact, I think there's a lot of poor people going through the same thing. There's a lot of middle-class people going through the same thing. There's a lot of people of all socioeconomic levels going through that. But it does tend to be a little more prominent in the super wealthy and the poverty-stricken among us. Let's go through some more of the rich man, poor man comparisons. Number one, rich man and poor man are both more likely to grow up with absent parents. Maybe one parent's out of the house, maybe both parents are out of the house. And, you know, maybe in the poor man situation, dad's out of the scene because he's a criminal and he's in prison. But also in the rich man scene, it could be dad's out of the house because he's a criminal and in prison. He's in prison for different things. Maybe not for having baggies of coke, maybe for embezzlement or running a Ponzi scheme or tax evasion or something. But it's not really that different. You're also more likely to be a very rich man or a very poor man if your only job is playing guitar in front of people. It's not a whole lot of middle-class guys whose only job, they're not their side job, not what they do on the weekends, but if your only job is playing guitar in front of people, you're probably either really rich or really poor. Another commonality between the rich man and the poor man is they are both less likely to drive themselves to work than the middle-class guy. But think about that for different reasons. Again, the really rich guy probably has a chauffeur, a bagman, or at least a personal assistant to drive him around, if not catching a cab or something to that effect, or taking a helicopter. But the super poor guy doesn't drive himself to work. A lot of times he gets a ride with a buddy, or he has to take a bus, or God forbid, a DART train, or maybe he walks to work. But that's another commonality. So do you have anything to add to that? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. It doesn't have to be something that only happens to really rich or really poor people, just something that's really prominent amongst those two groups that isn't really that prominent among the middle class. I bet you both rich man and poor man are more likely than the middle class to be known by local law enforcement. They're more likely to have family members in and out of prison. They're more likely to really be into racing. What kind of racing? I don't know. Rich people love horse racing. Poor people kind of like horse racing too. But another one is they are always looking for a new investment, that next big scheme. They're always trying to get in on some other, this is how I'm going to sink all my money into this, and then I'm going to be rich, or I'm going to make so much money with this. They don't really wake up and they go trudge 40 hours a week at the same job, getting the same paycheck, and just kind of cross their fingers hoping they get a promotion one day. They're always on to that next big scheme. Really rich people, really poor people, more likely than the middle class to hunt with dogs. Huh? Rich people and poor people, they're often known for eating animals not usually seen as food. So for, poor people, they'll just eat anything that you put in front of them. What is that, a cow's stomach? Give me that. I'll eat it. For really rich people, they're like, what is that, a snail with dirt on it? I'll eat it. So yeah, eating weird food. That's another rich man, poor man. Not carrying a wallet is another rich man, poor man. Owning really old guns is something you're more likely to see, in my observation, with the rich man, poor man. Rich man and poor man, both more likely to sleep with a maid. Rich men because they sleep with their maids, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Poor men because they married a maid. See how that works? But they're more likely to be with a maid than a regular person. Rich man, poor man, never goes to Lowe's. Rich man because someone else always fixes his house. Poor man because he doesn't have a house. And rich man, poor man, another thing they're both more likely to do than the middle class, eat most of their meals outside. You have anything to add to the rich man, poor man list? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Email james@wbap.com, or you can send me a Facebook message. Dirk Bentley is bringing his Broken Branches tour to Dos Equis Pavilion May 30th. Get tickets now at livenation.com or text BROKEN, because it's his Broken Branches tour. Text the word BROKEN to 800-288-9227 for your chance to win Dirk Bentley tickets. BROKEN to 800-288-9227. Coming up next, tax tips on the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Don't change the channel. We're going to talk about something terribly unpopular. And I'm sorry, but it has to be done. We've got to talk about taxes. I know it's tax season, though. And we all live in a world. Well, most of us have to pay taxes somewhat. Well, my next guest is going to help get us through it. Chris Wilbert back on the James Show. And look, tax season, if you're a CPA, you don't enjoy it because, you're just swamped in work. And, yeah, you make a little bit more money. But, it's tax season. Now the Better Business Bureau has a warning about ghost preparers. What do we need to know about that, Chris?
Well, the ghost preparers are out to file a false tax return to maximize the refund and put that money in their bank account. So they are out to enrich themselves at your expense and create huge headaches for you while you try to clean up the mess.
So this is one of the things that happen from all these data leaks, like when Target gets hacked or some government agency gets hacked or Visa gets hacked. One thing they can do is take your private info and go fill out a tax return on your behalf. And a lot of people don't find out till it's too late. How do they find out?
Well, most of the time when you submit your tax return, the IRS responds and says that a return has already been filed for you. And that's always a big surprise.
Okay, so what's the likelihood if this has happened to you that you're going to get to find out who did the bad tax return and they get punished and you get your money and all that?
Very low. They usually get away with it, unfortunately. Like in 2023, there's over $5 billion in fraudulent tax returns and refunds. So it is big business.
Anything you can do to prevent it or make it less likely to happen to you?
There's two things. The first is when you're going to, is when you do have your own tax return done and you're going to a new firm, to go and ask friends, family, go to the Better Business Bureau website to find established tax preparation services that you can trust that have a great track record in your community. But the main thing you can do is to create a PIN with the IRS, just like with your ATM card. So in order for anybody to file your tax return, they will need your PIN. And without that PIN, the IRS will reject any tax return that a fraudster may be trying to file under your Social Security number.
All right, so I don't do my taxes myself. I have a guy do them for me. Is there anything I need to do, or can I just assume he's on top of it?
Well, they can assist you in setting it up, but basically you go to the IRS website and you request the form. You take the form, you fill it out to request and set up your PIN. You submit it, and then it'll be in place, and then you give that to your tax preparer.
So, what about the tax cuts that are expected to expire at the end of the year? Do you foresee? I know it's an impossible question for you to nail down, but do you think they'll be extended?
I think a lot of it will be extended, and there will be some changes along the way. But with Trump in the White House and Republicans controlling Congress, I think most of the provisions of the Tax Cut and Job Act from 2017 will be extended.
So let's talk about the point to where you actually need to itemize. At what point does someone need to not take the standard deduction and the easy way out and actually go through and keep up with all their receipts and start itemizing their deductions? Do you have a rule of thumb for that, Chris?
Well, with the current tax law, the state and local taxes cap is $10,000. So what that means is if your property taxes are less than $10,000, you can have some room to itemize. But if your property taxes, for example, were over $10,000 a year, then at that point you would be in a position where you really there'd be no benefit to itemizing.
All right.
So,
any other big changes this year compared to years past when preparing your taxes, Chris?
Well, no big changes. Just, again, the fraudsters are out there in force. They're using everything from promises of cheap tax preparation through websites and pop-up storefronts to try to trick people into getting their information. And don't fall for any of the texts, emails, or phone calls for people calling you and trying to scare you into responding and giving them your information, because the IRS will never contact you by text, email, or phone. They'll only contact you by mail. So if anything comes through one of those three mediums other than the mail, automatically know it's fraud.
All right, Chris Wilbert, how do we find your work outside of WBAP?
just our website, echelonfinancial.com.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, it's terrible that you're doing a thing that you don't want to do anyway. Go out and pay taxes. How do I find out how much of my hard-earned money isn't going to go to my family and my children? It's going to have to go to D.C. And then on top of that, people are trying to scam you in the middle of this terrible process. They're just the lowest of the low tax fraud people. Your thoughts, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, I'm going to have to dig through my emails here because I've had a lot of response on both the storyline of the Neiman Marcus. You know, it's the flagship in downtown Dallas was announced that it was going to close, and now there seems to be a rush by Dallas leaders to spend your tax money to save it. That, and I have a couple of additions to the rich man, poor man list. If you want to get your thoughts in, you can either call 800-288-9227. You can send me a Facebook message, is really where I'm getting the most messages from, or email james@wbap.com. Yeah, the IRS won't email you. Social Security won't email you, but you can email me, james@wbap.com. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the big show. If you're just joining us, we've been covering a lot. The biggest story, I think, locally speaking, is there was a press conference this morning where a bunch of Dallas city leaders, the city manager, a couple of the councilmen, the Downtown Dallas Inc. CEO, a bunch of other people were down there making the case to spend your taxpayer dollars to keep the Neiman Marcus flagship store in the same building it's been in since 1907. Now, I was surprised somewhat. I mean, this happens more often than you would think. How every TV station and newspaper in town and most media outlets love the idea of throwing taxpayer money to keep this old store open. But every single person that called in, that emailed, or even sent a Facebook message is against the idea. So that was number one. Number two, of course, the biggest story nationally is what's going on in D.C. with Doge and Elon and Trump and the cuts. And we were making a rich man, poor man comparison there because the criticism, like Elon Musk, it was just discovered within the last week. I think over the weekend is when I saw it, that he had another baby mama. This is either the fourth or fifth. And people were like, well, I don't see how the common flyover country MAGA voter can support this guy when he doesn't share the same family values they claim to support. But having multiple baby mamas isn't something that disconnects you from the common man here in the great country of America. In fact, there's quite a few strange connections between the wealthy and the poor, and we were having fun with that list. And then also, internationally speaking, the biggest story is what's going on with Ukraine and Russia and the fact that Zelensky's coming to the White House to visit. And after, a contentious start, Trump and Zelensky are both saying maybe not nice things about each other, but at least deferential, like, well, we got to talk this out, or we've got to work out this deal, or I'd be willing to do this if we can get this done. And so we may be seeing like the beginning of the end of the Ukraine war after 3 ugly years and a bunch of lives needlessly lost. It'll be good to see an end to that. So let's get to some of the feedback here. Pretty much all these are from James at WBAP.com. Russell says, in the rich man, poor man front, he says, I could just go all the way across the board. I don't know. But it seems like rich man and poor man are both always trying to figure out how to earn more money. And I'm definitely on the poor end of that spectrum. Yeah, that's one of the tough parts about going through the rich man, poor man list. If too many of these hit you square between the eyes and you're not a rich man, you know what that means. You're one of the poor ones. John in Fort Worth writes in about the Neiman Marcus flagship being possibly saved by taxpayer money. He says, hello, James. Hello, John. I lived in Fort Worth since 1958, which I was born and raised in. Times change and life goes on. There was once a Cox department store, a Leonard's and Monning's department store, as well as Neiman's. All closed. Life goes on. And that's a good attitude to have. Yeah, there used to be a Montgomery Awards. There used to be a TG&Y. There used to be a Gibson's. There used to be a, what was the Lion, Grocery King, Grocery Lion, Food Lion? Food Lion, that's what I was trying to think of. That one went away. There used to be all kinds of stores that just disappeared. There used to be a Valley View Mall, but it's gone. So aren't you glad we didn't go throw millions and millions of dollars at Valley View Mall to keep that open? But it's historic. It's part of the fabric. It's vital to the... Oh, shut up. Ron says, on the Neiman Marcus topic, Ron says, I would guess about 1% of voters shop there. The 99% can't afford to shop there. And, that's what makes it such a curious decision. Of all the stores to rush in and defend, you're going to get a high-end luxury store that most of us can't even afford? How is that politically popular? I can understand and how it would be politically popular if you're trying to save, some like the Forest Theater or something that is enjoyed by the common man or is affordable even by the common man. But Neiman's? That's a weird one. Agreed. Other John, I don't know where he's from, but he said, I hadn't shopped at Neiman Marcus since they quit selling buggy whips. Oh, I like that attitude. I think if they want to attract people to downtown Dallas, they would make the Neiman Marcus building a casino. Love the show. Hope it lasts forever. Oh, I do too. The two reasons it's not going to last forever. Number one is I'm immortal. Number two, I'm going to retire at some point, or who am I kidding? Probably get fired pretty soon. any day now. Russell writes in to James at WBAP. And on the Neiman Marcus topic, he says, when people pay taxes normally, that amount is based off of a particular budget that's usually voted on, right? No, we don't vote on the budget. The city council votes on the budget, but they give themselves slush funds and they give themselves wiggle room to do certain things like this. So when they say, well, we're going to dedicate $18 million to the downtown development district. Well, this will come from that slush fund. You know, they appropriate money, and when they don't specifically say what it's for, they can go back and some bureaucrat decides after the fact, whatever is politically advantageous, we'll throw money at that. Whether it's something to give you good PR in the news, like saving Neiman's, or to repay a donor, or to reward your cronies, like the guy who gets to negotiate the deal, or the landlords who are going to get more money than they otherwise would, whoever owns that building. You know, there's a lot of different interests in there. And no, they are not constrained in the least by the budget that's voted on by the city council. But he goes on to say, I don't think Neiman Marcus was in that budget when everyone voted or was taxed. So at this point, in order to support Neiman Marcus with people's tax money, wouldn't they have to withhold it from another budgeted area, so to speak? I guess what I'm saying, someone would lose money somewhere else in order for taxes to be used on Neiman Marcus. Oh God, Russell, I wish. Lisa in Midlothian writes about the Ukraine-Russian war with Zelensky coming to visit the White House. She says, I hope this war ends soon and the financial hemorrhaging ends. Maybe some of the lost money can actually be found, but I'm not holding my breath. And if history is any sort of teacher, you're right. Don't hold your breath. I mean, the ugliest thing about war is obviously the destruction, the human suffering, the loss of life, the maiming, children suffering, starving, famine, disease, pestilence, all that stuff. Right behind it is the economic pain that is, even if you win the war, think of all the trillions that are squandered. Think of all the trillions that are squandered in Afghanistan. Think of all the trillions that are squandered in any of these foreign aid overseas adventures. So yeah, nice little round of feedback here on, and that's just from the email, James at WBAP.com. Oh, look, Cynthia wrote in, her son fell prey to one of the email tax preparer things. And if only she had heard the segment with Chris Wilbert, or if only her son had heard that, maybe he could have been saved. That's why you got to listen to the James Show. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk to one of my favorite guests, Dr. Brian Ardis. And look, the CDC just had a campaign and conference killed promoting flu shots. Did RFK Jr. do this? And was it the right thing to do? Do you trust flu shots? Do you get a flu shot? Do you trust any vaccines? I've never gotten a flu shot. And it's not that I'm just raving anti-vaxxer. It's just I don't do doctor things. I hadn't seen a doctor in adulthood. I just go through life and just whatever happens, happens. I'm not one of those guys. Am I dumb? Am I going to be okay? Well, we'll ask a doctor next. Dr. Brian Ardis coming up on the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, my next guest is a fun one. I get a lot of good emails and Facebook messages every time he's on the show because he says some things that just don't match up with what you've heard from so many other places, which is why we like him. Dr. Brian Artis from the Dr. Artis Show back on the James Show. Welcome back, Dr. Brian.
It's great to be here. How are you?
Pretty good. Look, the last time you were on, you said some... I don't know. Some people found it sensational. I found it pretty normal. Some things about nicotine. Just can you do like a 1 minute, like a 60-second summary of your difference on nicotine compared to the rest of the world?
Absolutely. In 2016, Harvard published a study that nicotine is not the only substance in tobacco products that are making them addictive. In fact, they published that there's 16 different chemicals made by man put in every tobacco commercially product. So every cigarette, snuff, dip, you name it, it's loaded with 16 man-made addictive chemicals called pyrazines. And as Harvard published, nicotine is not what drives the addiction of tobacco products. It's these man-made chemicals called pyrazines that the FDA has allowed the tobacco giants to add to their products since 1970. And they just happened to expose it in 2016. And even in their research paper stated, we think the FDA should start regulating pyrazines instead of nicotine. And for additional things, did you know nicotine is second found highest in any plant on earth is called eggplants. Every eggplant you've eaten is loaded with the second highest amount of nicotine on earth. Red tomatoes are the third highest containing nicotine plant on earth, which all of you have eaten. Green tomatoes have 10 times more nicotine. And then white potatoes are the fourth highest nicotine containing vegetable on earth. And it is published by Medical News Today that nicotine found in those plants can be a curative agent for Parkinson's, MS, Alzheimer's, ulcerative colitis, every arthritis known to man, even improves a lot of the worst symptoms and signs in the autism spectrum disorder for children and adults when they wear nicotine patches or eat those nicotine-rich foods. Everything you've been told about nicotine is not absolutely true. It is a nutrient found in many plants around the world that are known to have more anti-inflammatory and chronic illness reversing benefits.
Woo! And what was the explanation for why tobacco was still addictive even before the additives in the 70s, 60s, and 70s?
Oh, that wasn't ever published by our FDA until 1994, everyone. The FDA asked all 7 heads of the largest tobacco giants in the country to come to Washington, D.C. and testify under oath whether or not nicotine in tobacco products was addictive. I have the video in 1994 on my website where all 7 held their arm up to the square and actually said, under threat of perjury from the congressman, please state your claim if nicotine is addictive or not. And all 7 of them individually in a 20-second segment all said, nicotine is not addictive. The tobacco industry knows it's not addictive. The FDA published 4 months later, regardless of listening to the CEOs of the tobacco giants. They're the ones that published in 1994 that all tobacco products have to contain a label stating that nicotine is an extremely addictive substance, of which it is not.
All right, now let's look at today's topic is the flu shot. It's not being touted as it usually is by the Centers for Disease Control. And one of the reports here says it may be poorly matched for our flu season. What's going on with the flu shot this year, Dr. Artis?
Yes, it's great. So there was actually a CDC initiative, and it was to actually start promoting through social media flu vaccines for this year and next year. And that was supposed to launch at the end of this month. And RFK Jr. this week announced that he was canceling that meeting to kick off that campaign to promote flu vaccines through social media. He said, no, we're not doing that. And the reason for that is most of your listeners may not know. Did you know of the lifetime of the flu vaccines being used in America? All of them, of which every year there's at least 9 different brands of flu vaccines offered in medical offices around America, and they're all different. Did you know for all of them, historically, all flu vaccines only have a 4% efficacy for their entire history at preventing infection of the flu and stopping transmission to somebody else?
Yeah, I love that stat. You said that on the James Show before. Do you ever get the flu shot?
I have never given any of my 5 children, 4 of which are adults now. I've never gotten the flu shot, and if I ever did, it might have been before the age of 6 years old, and my parents may have gotten me 1 or 2. but I've never, ever recommended that to a patient in the last 20 years, nor to any of my family members.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about, Dr. Brian Ardis, is I read this pretty long report on how it was only recently that human beings stopped napping, and for most of human history, napping was normal. I never take naps, at least on a weekday. Do you find that to have significant health benefits, napping?
Actually, every country, even in South America and Latin American countries, who take siestas daily, where they actually shut down their cities and everybody goes home from work or goes home from school and they nap during the day, every single health parameter, including all chronic illnesses, cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative diseases, all countries who have napping or periods of each day where they designate for resting, they have lower chronic illness rates and better health outcomes than all Americans who don't nap.
Hey, you hear that, HR? So if you see me sleeping in the studio here, before or after the show, it's just for health. And are you trying to kill us? We would be more healthy if we had maybe we need a nap space at work here, Dr. Ardis.
Amen to that. Ask your HR to call me and we'll talk about it and I'll share the research.
Yeah, see, Latin America, there's a lot of things about y'all we really like. I like soccer, so that's one of them. But I really like their stance on napping. I wish it was more widely adopted. Dr. Ardis, thank you very much for your time on the James Show. How do they find some of your very controversial work online?
Yeah, go to thedrardisshow.com, thedrardisshow.com, or go to amazon.com and buy my book called Moving Beyond COVID-19 Lies. It's an Amazon bestseller right now. Go check it out.
All right, and go ahead and email me later if you need to know how to spell his name. I'm going to get about 6 of those between now and bedtime, Dr. Ardis. So I'll redirect them to you. I've got it down. Dr. Brian Ardis. Let me know. James at WBAP.com if you have trouble finding it. I'm ecstatic to put you in contact with any of our guests. Coming up next, some more local news and sound bites around that, and I have a couple of responses here on the Neiman Marcus situation. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.